We really could talk about this movie for like ever.
We could just do a whole podcast dedicated to reviewing Infinity
You literally could do like a 4-hour, and no other Marvel movie would I feel like compelled to do that. You know, that's my point with this movie. This is the first time where I'm like, you could talk about like almost everything in this movie for like hours. You know,
I'll say, it's like, is this a perfect movie? No, but it is distinct and it's gripping.
And it's a Marvel movie that people will be discussing.
Yeah,
it is a game changer for the MCU in that way. When we all feel like we've gotten used to formula and stuff, it's a game changer. Hey, Reject Nation. Greg here.
John!
So we just got back from watching Infinity War for the second time. Seventh time. Boy, I am tired of the movie. If you guys haven't seen our non-spoiler review, highly recommend it because we have an opening sketch there at the beginning. Tyro Magnus actually just watched it, and I'm going to just play for you guys what he said. I got the message when I was leaving the theater.
I just got done watching your skit. This shit was funny, man. It took me a second to figure out what scene you were doing. And then once it did, I was like, okay. Pretty good, my friend. Pretty good.
We did an opening sketch that we spent a lot of time working on, and most of the comments on our review are actually about the sketch. So thank you guys for all the loving feedback we've gotten on it. Let's go into the spoiler talk about this. It's been a few days. The movie's been out. Most people have seen it. Most spoilers are out already. Let's go into this. I guess where I'd like to start off with this discussion, going over things that I specifically was talking about, or that we were specifically talking about that might feel differently in a second viewing. Don't worry, we'll go over all the big deaths. We'll go over everything.
With movies like these, especially big hype, culmination, massive crossovers, it always feels to me like the first viewing, you break the spell of the hype, and on the second viewing, you can catch the flow. And this movie does flow better the second time.
I actually really enjoy the hell out of this movie. I would definitely say there's plenty of elements in it that I love, and there's plenty of moments, especially the first time I watched it, where I cheered. Even a second time around, there were times where I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna clap again for this. This is like a great moment right here. First time I watched it, I said there's tonal shift issues I had and pacing problems I had. And the second time watching it, I actually don't feel necessarily that. I think where the minor problem occurs for me is it's an energy issue. I think this movie's kind of divided into 3 parts.
Act 1.
Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. Yeah. Essentially, right? Because Act 1 of this film is longer than a typical 25-minute Act 1. Act 1 in this movie is very energetic and very bang, bang, bang. And I guess we could just kind of go through this whole film like that. The opening scene, I think, is really cool and even more effective the second time I watch this because the first time I watched it, I wasn't expecting such immediacy. It picks up right away. Asgard is practically obliterated already. I love that opening scene because there's so much they set up within Thanos as a physical character that is intimidating. That first time when Loki is like, yeah, I have the Tesseract, but we have a Hulk, and then the Hulk shows up. I remember the first time I watched that scene, I was cheering. I was like, oh!
Yeah.
And then we watched it with...
Because so many theories have been made about that scene alone, and that was a surprise right out the gate.
And it's a cool fight, because you're like, yeah, Hulk's fucking him up. But then suddenly Thanos just immediately overtakes him, where Ebony Maw's like, let him have his fun. Right away, you've never seen a character overpower the Hulk that easily, especially one who kind of matches him in size and appearance. That was the intimidating factor right there. And when he kills Loki, I thought that was an awesome setup even the first time. It's not a big surprise because a lot of us theorized that. Watching my predictions video, I was one of the ones who was like, I'm pretty sure it's going to happen, right? I even said in my predictions video, it's probably going to happen like the first 10 minutes of the movie. Loki is the guy who always comes back from the dead. Loki was Marvel's Avengers first villain, so
that's what really hit me this time. And he was sent by Thanos, so to literally watch the bigger fish kill the first Avengers villain on screen in such a personal way. This time, that moment really impacted me. I was like, oh yeah, you're setting the tone right now.
It's clever, and when he dies, it's brutal.
He's just face to face with him as he
strangles his eyes
right in front of Thor.
It's Quentin Tarantino's hands doing it.
He's the go-to choke guy now.
Yeah. And then Heimdall dies. It's not the movie's fault. That scene doesn't have an effect on me. It's not the movie's fault.
Well,
it's the Thor franchise's fault. That film, that moment doesn't have an effect on me. Yeah, he dies, and it's more like, man, I really wish they developed that character more, because that would have been way more effective. Because the first time
aw, I like Idris Elba.
Yeah. And then as the movie keeps going, I like that first act because there's so much energy and so much bang, bang, bang to it.
Yeah, you're rejoining all your characters as they find out about this situation, which hypes up the intrigue and also is a great way to bond with, the Avengers as they set out on this journey.
That first fight, though, in New York, I love that first fight in New York, especially when they're inside Doctor Strange's place and the camera just starts following them out, and then you get one moment where Tony's like, help this woman out.
Yeah, and those people in the car, look at that.
Oh yeah, they're helping people, cool.
Yeah, and you're just following them through the street to find the source of all the mayhem, and when you do, it's pretty imposing and pretty rewarding.
Yeah, it's very rewarding, and the whole fight is cool, and the way it's edited is neat. When they start dishing it out, and whatever, I don't know the name of the big spinny ship is, but then the
donut.
The donut, yeah, and it smash cuts to Peter with his hair standing up.
Yeah,
great moment.
I in my mind, I filled in the blank with a meanwhile across town. In this viewing,
there's so much excitement and intrigue there, because when Spider-Man is flying up there and he's going after Strange and all the great quips and everything, Hulk not hulking out, I appreciate, because it shows how scared Hulk is of the Black Order and Thanos. That's at least the vibe I got.
It's not super developed. I wonder if there are scenes they cut out or whatever, but yeah, I mean, especially hearing you say that the first time, that's how I read it. This time Hulk just doesn't want to.
Yeah, he seems like he's scared to come out because he lost badly.
Yeah.
And then they even cut to the Guardians, and I love that little touch where it cuts to the Guardians and the title text just says space. That was neat.
That's a good meta joke.
That's a great meta joke, especially for who the Guardians are. All that stuff with Thor showing up, and then the humor, everyone's making fun of how buff he is and calling Star-Lord fat. All this is moving along so smoothly and so fast. Then they get to Vision and Scarlet Witch. Upon that opening scene, it takes me a while to adjust to the fact that they're actually like in love with each other now. It's when they're walking on the street and Vision's is like, I'm just gonna speak from the heart or whatever.
He does that charming British fumbling over the words, and then she's like, it just works.
Those Black Order members show up, and then Cap shows up, and all that shit is super, super duper cool.
I feel like all the intros are cool. Whenever anybody shows up for the first time, you're like, and the movie really earns it.
And they use some of the intros to have some cool action sequences as well. It's when they start setting out on their very specific missions when the energy shift happens.
The middle.
Because there's like an hour of no action. And that's not a problem. I'm not saying that this film should have only action scenes. I'm not saying this film should be primarily action scenes. It's the balance of it I'm talking about. They have some cool scenes like, okay, they go to nowhere, the Guardians, and then Gamora pretend kills Thanos. Like, that's a bit of an action scene. Or when Spidey is on the ship, and then he tells Tony, ever seen that movie Aliens? And then they kill Ebony Maw. That's a bit of an action sequence.
It was gratifying.
It's gratifying.
Kid's got a good plan.
Because then it reveals the spider legs, which is awesome. That was an awesome moment. And then even when the Guardians first meet Tony, Doctor Strange, and Spider-Man, a little bit of action, sure.
It harkened back to the first Avengers for me, where it's like, oh, we're all fighting each other.
Yeah.
Because we don't know how to get along. We don't know who each other is exactly.
The thing is, you got to keep in mind, the first 30 to 40 minutes is a lot of humor and a lot of action. And then there's like an hour where it just gets really serious and slows it down with sprinkles of humor here or there. I think that's why the first time I watched this, I thought there was a tonal imbalance. When really it's just an
energy shift.
Yeah.
That creates this weird Oreo that is like fast and high stakes, but still kind of fun on the front and back end, and then the middle end is a bit somber, I guess.
And then
it expands the scenes more. It's like in the second act, you find yourself, or the middle, I guess you'd say, you find yourself forgetting about certain characters, and then they'll check back to people, and you'll be like, oh yeah, you.
Because we spent a long time away from you that I didn't forget you were in the movie, but I stopped thinking about you.
And the thing is that over the course of both of these viewings, I've realized that the characters I met in the first act are my favorites of the movie. And anybody who came in later, especially in the middle, are less prominent, less defined, standout.
And I don't want anything to miscommunicate here of when I talk about the energy for the second act of this film slowing down and being more serious as 100% negative. I don't want it to it's really just an energy shift that can be hard to readjust to, because there's still plenty of great things that occur within that second act. I think there's still a lot of greatness there. I just think it's the least effective part of it.
There are great things and there are rewarding moments throughout this movie. There are just certain things that are hindered by the very nature of what this movie is and what it has to accomplish and how many moving parts it needs to use.
Because as I still feel like most of the characters are kind of just the one note thing that show up.
Because it's always going to be an issue when you have like 30-odd Avengers. You know, like if you got to have them all in the same movie, and not everybody's going to get to shine.
Cap especially was kind of problematic for me, because when Cap shows up, it's really cool. They make hints about where they might have been up to. We don't stay at 5-star hotels, and I'm like, but what have you guys been up to? Are you guys like going on random missions for who? Who are you guys work for somebody, or just like look for problems around the world? If Chris Evans' last movie is Avengers 4, I want to know what they've been doing since the Civil War. Like, he does get a great moment. One of my favorite moments is, "Be my friend, Tree. I am Groot. I'm Steve Rogers."
And it's great delivery.
That's exactly how Captain America would answer that. "I'm Steve Rogers."
And I mean, it's cool to see him, and they're calling this the Nomad look. Like, I was like, oh, cool, like Nomad style. I'm excited for that. It's just not enough time.
To me, even a second viewing, I really feel like Black Panther was not utilized well. He feels like when like a Marvel character makes a cameo in someone else's standalone movie. That's kind of what Black Panther feels like in this movie.
He doesn't feel like a part of the Infinity War so much as a character who appears in this movie. You know?
Even the fact that they're in Wakanda kind of didn't have a huge effect on me in this time, because to me it kind of feels borderline Ready Player One status. I know that's not an avatar of Black Panther. I get that. Like,
it doesn't feel like a fully fledged T'Challa at the same time, though.
The Wakanda battle, to me, I realized what the issue was of why I didn't really feel the stakes both times of watching is with the Wakanda battle specifically. They're cutting back and forth between Wakanda and Titan. Like, granted, there's some badass stuff that happens in the Wakanda battle. I like the way it's shot. I like kind of like the grittiness of it.
It really harkens to an epic style of filmmaking. Something more like Lord of the Rings or something like that, where you're really in the action and in the thick of it.
In terms of the way it's shot. And then there's some great stuff there with Scarlet Witch, where she gets to do some of the coolest stuff she's ever done. Where she's taking those things that come from under the ground and
circular
demolishing people. That moment where Bucky and Rocket are spinning around, kind of harkening back to Groot and Rocket in the first one. That was a really cool moment. And of course, when Thor shows up.
That's the best part of the Wakanda fight.
That's the most gratifying part.
Definitely.
I know we're kind of going all over the place here, but you kind of will when you do the spoiler talk for a movie like this. Because Thor's storyline didn't feel as dragged out to me this time around.
No.
We're going to get back to the Wakanda battle in a second. Thor's storyline didn't feel as dragged out to me this time around. My main issue with Thor's storyline is Peter Dinklage.
I feel you. I feel like he's a little... I mean, you can expound on this, but for me, he's a little flat, and I just kept getting distracted by things.
I think the fact that they cast specifically Peter Dinklage is distracting. The first time we watched it, people kind of laughed. We saw this on opening night, technically, because we went to an advanced screening, and then we went to an opening night screening, and the first, 30 seconds he was on screen, people were just laughing, you know?
Well, because the thing is...
because it's goofy.
I flip-flopped during the first viewing. Half of me was like, I could see why you might snicker at this and think it's silly. I thought for moments that it was kind of cool. It's like, oh, okay, like, to us, we know this man is a dwarf or a little person, but, they blew him up, that's novel.
It's distracting, though, because we know him so well as the little man. Any popular little man actor would have been distracting. If you got some unknown little man, that would have been fine.
What I think for me, what distracted me further is they had him do that British accent, and he just started to look like a giant Tyrion who let himself go.
Well, yeah, even his British accent isn't 100% the Tyrion accent. It's a little more like this.
They just pitched his voice down.
You can tell they did voice altering on him.
And it was one of those things where I was like, you didn't need to do that. He could have just had a nothing accent.
That's true. They're not real British people.
He's hanging out with a neutron star. Like, what accent is there for that?
Okay, I get it. Like, this dwarf is supposed to be one of, a giant mystical dwarf. It's distracting because it's Peter Dinklage, and I'm so aware you blew up Peter Dinklage.
Yeah, that's what makes it funny. Does make it in your face.
Yeah, that's what makes it funny. It makes it rewarding when Thor's doing all the stuff with building the hammer, and that moment when Groot gets to do something. When Groot,
his one moment
where he's able to take the axe and then make a hammer,
make a handle
out of it
to hold it together.
Even the second time I watched it, I'm like, that's cool.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah, exactly.
And then when Thor shows up with Rocket and Groot, that's a really rewarding moment. So then Thor's messing everyone up. That's badass. It's awesome. It's rewarding. The general thing about the Wakanda battle that bothers me is there's a lack of build-up to the Wakanda battle. And I think that goes hand in hand with how they handle Black Panther specifically. The first time you see Black Panther, what is it? They're talking about trying to get the stone out of Vision's head. Cap goes, I know a guy, or I know a place or something. And everyone immediately goes, oh, Wakanda. And then they cut to Black Panther. He says, king stuff. And then he's like, the white wolf has waited long enough or something like that.
Yeah.
And then he gives him a vibranium arm. Because he says, where's the battle? He's like, it's coming. And there's no build up to that. Like, oh, I guess the battle is just that's
is
their
really
first
like
scene.
10 minutes before the battle on their timeline. It's just like, oh shit, there's about to be a battle.
And then the second time you get back to Wakanda with Black Panther, like 5 minutes later, there's the battle.
Yeah.
There's no escalation like, there's a war coming, there's an army coming. There's none of that. That's why the comparison to like a Helm's Deep kind of battle, that's how some people have put it.
It's what it wants to be.
It wants to be that in terms of the way
arguably should be that.
The way it's captured. But in terms of emotional stakes, I don't really feel it. Because it feels more like a cameo by Wakanda. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it really does. And I mean, the main crux of so much of that sequence is just, you have Proxima Midnight and Tiny or whatever the other guy's name is, and just a bunch of, pretty icky looking but still pretty faceless creatures. And the Black Order is sort of ineffectual except for Ebony Maw sort of in this movie. So a lot of it feels like, oh, we got to keep the Avengers busy, I guess. Until Thanos finally gets her here.
Because the Black Order never succeeds in doing anything, and Thanos always shows up to finish the job.
Except for getting Strange, to Titan, which he does himself.
Yeah, he does. I like the few jokes in the Wakanda battle. It wasn't like Age of Ultron where you guys really shouldn't be joking right now. It's ruining the stakes.
Yeah.
Like when Scarlet Witch shows up and does a badass thing and Okoye is like, where's she been the whole time? Why was she up there? Or something, like that was a really funny moment. When Rocket says, how much for the gun? How much for the R? He's like, I'll get that R. That's a funny moment. And Thor and Cap are talking about their beards. Like those moments fit naturally where they're just like exhausted and they have to just say something,
I'll do you one better.
Yeah.
Why is Gamora? And you're like, this is not the time, but at the same time, that's a perfectly in-character joke for this moment when you're all at odds. They did a better job of the humor in tense situations for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like some of the humor's still a little off. It was weird how that one moment when they're all in Titan and they're all plotting how they could take down Thanos, Tony gets mad at Drax for not listening, and Drax was like, I stopped listening after you said, here's the plan, or something like that.
We need a plan.
Like that was just like, oh, Drax, come on, why'd you become this dumb? But Tony's look about him just staring, annoyed
face
for like 10 seconds
in that moment.
Because that look is going on for so long. That it redeems it.
That was one of the few moments in this movie that really like grabbed me and disoriented me for a second, because I was like, he's gonna say, oh no.
Yeah.
He's just looking off right now. He's having a moment now.
Yeah. But going into the second act is where a lot of like the gritty story stuff happens, other than like the finale surprises. All that stuff with Thanos and Gamora, I thought is pretty effective. I like how every time he has a stone, he is always using a stone. When they show up to nowhere, the Guardians, he has the reality stone warping what it really looks like now in nowhere. I thought was a great moment. And I like that he had Gamora go through with that, because it got me to care more about their relationship with Thanos and Gamora, because she thinks she kills Thanos. There's a lot of gotcha moments in here. That's more of an obvious moment, or it's like, obviously Thanos, this is so early in the movie. You're like, well, obviously that's not Thanos, or Thanos isn't dead. But that's a moment that serves well for Gamora's purpose, because when she starts breaking down, you're like, oh, she really does view him like a father. Even if she hates him, there's that father
conflict.
Exactly. There's still that father-daughter thing that she feels.
Fucked up and weird.
Yeah. I love all the stuff where they're actually just debating with each other in that like cave or whatever, and then he takes it to Nebula because he's trying to get Gamora to talk about like where the Soul Stone is.
Yeah, and that's one of the most just sidebar. That's one of the most beautiful images in the movie. The way they perspective Nebula out.
Yeah.
Where you come in, you think she's just suspended, and then you pan around and she's completely deconstructed in perspective. Yeah.
Because I think the writing of Thanos' character is so good in this movie. Because I read the Infinity Gauntlet comic book. Thanos in the comic book is very much like, I am always, at least it's read that way, yelling. Josh Brolin's always like, I'm a cool Thanos. All times, That when he yells, it's like, oh my god.
And
looks scary.
When he speaks very softly, you listen.
Yeah, he's kind of like poetic, like a Shakespearean type of villain in that way. When they go to Vormir and Red Skull is there, that was a great reveal.
That was cool.
I once heard on a movie fight segment of which villain should be brought back, and someone argued, I can't remember which one it was, argued for Red Skull. And the second they chose that, I was like, absolutely, should be Red Skull, because he's such a big villain, especially in the cat mythology. You should bring him back. And I like that they brought him back in kind of this like mystical sense, because when he first shows up, I thought it was Mistress Death, because Thanos' whole storyline and with the Infinity Gauntlet is all about satisfying Mistress Death.
Press that
kick. So I thought it was, and then like appearance, and then you hear the voice, you're like, well, it's obviously a man. And I'm like, that voice sounds familiar, ends up being Red Skull. I think I should definitely point this out, because I didn't keep it in the edit of our non-spoiler review, was that I thought if you watch this film on an IMAX quality screen, the effects might look better. For the most part, they did. There are some moments that don't look as good, but the most part, they did. And the scene when Thanos has to kill Gamora, I found more effective the second time, because the first time I watched it, it looked like a cartoon. This time around, I'm like, oh, it looks pretty real, actually. I think that's an effective moment, and I really hope they keep... It's like Gamora gets killed, and my theory, based off of the way the movie ends and has this moment with Thanos and little Gamora, and the fact that he kills Gamora, then he just wakes up in the water, and he has the stone in his hand. I feel like Gamora's in the Soul Stone. Or
her soul is contained within it until he gives it up or something.
Then you have to go to World's End.
To rescue Witty Jack.
What's become of my pearl? I think Gamora dying was clever, because I don't think anyone expected that or was predicting that.
It's the only surprise death.
It's the only surprise death, really, because no one was predicting that she would die. I think the lackluster effect for me on it is she didn't really get a chance to truly shine.
I thought she got one of the more juicy, like, character performances for this movie, and in that way it was gratifying to me, because I thought Zoe Saldana did a great job. Like, she's one of the performances that stands out to me.
She gets dramatic weight in the film.
And the first time, none of
the Gamoranisms that we love.
Yeah,
she doesn't even kick ass or anything.
She's pretty much 100% serious through this.
Yeah, she's very dramatic, and it's all about her relationship with Thanos, and that's arguably the most important thing you should focus on, and which is what they do. I felt like it would have been that much more effective if we got to have moments of just loving her instead.
Yeah. And I mean, that's a kind of an unfortunate byproduct of just how much they have to get done in this movie. And I could have used something like that to rekindle all of that love.
I'm surprised we haven't said this yet. My favorite characters in this film are definitely Tony Stark and Doctor Strange. Possibly Doctor Strange is my favorite in this movie, especially on a second viewing.
I think Doctor Strange is my favorite character in this. My favorite characters to watch were like Tony, Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, Thor, and Gamora and Thanos.
So when you get to the finale, and then when they're on Titan, Doctor Strange does have that moment where he's like seeing into the future, and he says there's one chance, there's one way.
One timeline where this all works out.
Which is, so that makes sense of what the ending is of why he decides to hand over the Time Stone, because that probably links up to that, whatever future he was predicting.
It was the only way.
It's clever because it's also a character arc for Doctor Strange. I feel like very few characters in here, the Avengers, get an arc. It kind of just ends.
Yeah.
And Doctor Strange has that moment where Tony and Spidey first save him, where he says, if it's between you and the kid and the Time Stone, you guys are gone.
Yeah.
And then he chooses to save Tony instead.
But does he do that because he cares, or does he do that because it's part of the only timeline in which this works out?
That's the question, right?
Yeah.
That's the question.
Yeah.
I feel like most people probably think it's because that's the way it works out, but I also got the impression that he does care.
Or at least respect. Yeah, I feel you.
I think the fight on Titan is actually, even though it's not as huge as Wakanda, I think it's a way better fight. It's a more emotionally at stake. It's more heavy at stake because I love that when he shows up, it's just Thanos and Doctor Strange. Thanos is, doing his whole snap the finger talk. Yeah. I love all that talk. I love like pretty much all the dialogue Thanos gets in here. When they're fighting Thanos, I think that fight is more rewarding because everyone is working together in a way where they all have to use their specialty. That was the unique part. Even Drax gets to do something that's not just a joke. He gets to slash his like calf or back of the leg or something like that.
Yeah. They all figure in their own unique way.
And Doctor Strange is constantly helping them out with like Spider-Man jumping through the magic portals and stuff.
Magic with a kick.
Yeah. I didn't hear that the first time we watched it because people were laughing.
Oh,
that was a funny ass line. Yeah. In that whole fight scene, I thought was amazing. It was super impressive. And then when they all have Thanos, that's a really intense, dramatic moment.
It's the one fight where you're like, come on,
yeah,
so close.
Even Mantis gets to do a thing, like where she puts him, like,
she puts
him essentially.
Under, a bit.
And the Star-Lord moment is so debatable for me of what he does next. Because when Star-Lord is confronting him about like, where's Gamora? Finds out Gamora dies, and Tony's like, hey man, get your shit together.
We were so close to this.
Two sides of me occur in that moment of, yeah, I get it. Like, that's the woman you love.
And you already almost had to kill her once.
Yeah, so that makes sense. Two is...
Don't you realize where you are and what is happening and how close we are?
If you wake him up and you don't have the gauntlet off, you all die.
Help them.
So I'm able to logically forgive it in that moment when it happens. There's even another gotcha moment where Peter slightly gets the glove off. Not Peter. It is Peter. Yeah, Parker. Yeah, Parker.
Get in here.
He gets the glove off and then he hits him away. I think what just nailed it in the direction of annoying for me is after they all lose and Thanos vanishes with the time stone, where Quill comes back and goes, did we lose? I'm like, you're the reason we lost.
You lost it for us, man. You fucked up.
You screwed everyone over.
And this is why we gotta think. Yeah, you've been in this fight for most of this movie. You know who Thanos is.
I honestly don't know how some people are responding to that moment. Is like, I don't know if everyone's like, totally get it why he did it, and it's not annoying at all. For me, it's kind of annoying because there wasn't enough. There wasn't enough emotional investment in the fact that Gamora and Quill were now like a thing.
Yeah.
Because before it's been just a cat and mouse game, and then now they're just a thing in this movie. I also felt like Quill kind of could have anticipated that she'd be dead because he almost killed her with the bubbles. Because he almost kills her. She was saying
prepared him for the first
She was
scene
preparing for the fact that if she gets captured, she's probably dead.
Yeah,
or they're all dead.
The emotional moment they get to have together is all about how it's probably going to cost her life, this whole situation.
Yeah, exactly.
Be prepared for me to die.
Yeah, it's like, I get it as a dude, totally understand as a human being, I just totally get it.
Chick, man.
At the same time, it's like there's so much more at stake than your boyish emotions, because that's the conflicting part with Quill and for me in this movie is everyone treats him like he's an idiot in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, everyone treats him like he's an idiot. Yeah. And he only really gets one cool moment when he puts the grenade, the bomb, on Thanos' back and then gives him the middle finger and then hops in the... Like, that was the only cool moment Quill gets. He gets a lot of funny lines, but it's always at the expense of him being an idiot that no one respects. Every time he's trying to lead, no one listens. Every time he's trying to pump himself up, no one like, there's a lot of funny-ass scenes. Like, the first scene with him and Thor is hilarious. And anytime he talks about Thor, it's funny. That was kind of the downgrade for me in that moment. That whole fight I do find very impactful. I do love the moment when you think Thanos kills Tony. I think that's a great gotcha moment.
Yeah.
I feel like some people could get annoyed by that, like, psh, fucking Marvel pussied out. You could have killed Tony.
Because in that moment, you think it could go any which way. Even if you're being cynical.
That's the effective part about Thanos, especially as being the main character, is you just think, Thanos could kill. Like, I remember the first time I watched this, when he first shows up at Wakanda, I thought he was just going to kill them all right there. Like, screw you, man.
At least, at very, very
least. I thought Scarlet Witch he was going to kill the first time I watched it.
Yeah. At very least, especially the first time, when he stabs Tony, it's like, we've been speculating that he was going to die, and that was the one moment where I was like, here's the moment where this movie goes big, and really shocks me with something, even if we thought it might happen.
It's done so well, and I think it's a Doctor Strange. I like the 1-2 combo of, is he giving the time stone because it's the only way they could win, or is he doing it because he cares about Tony? Could be both. And I think the reason why I'm okay with the fact to let Iron Man live is for that moment for Doctor Strange. I could get why some people could feel like Marvel pussied out. But personally, I think that's a really effective moment. So when Thanos gets to Wakanda, I love that moment where they're all just whichever Avengers are left in there are just trying to take him out because he uses one of each stone.
Just like little power for you.
Little space stone.
Little reality for you.
That was really cool. We all speculated that Vision would probably die in this movie. I was on the side hoping that Marvel was misleading us. So it's not a surprise that Vision dies by any stretch. However, I'll say it's very effective when he does die both times. Right? Like the first time he died, I cried. The first time I watched this movie, I believed their relationship. I believed their love. Like their performances I thought were the best. The sad part about Vision and to me in this movie is he doesn't get any cool Vision shit to do. Like I didn't notice that
in like 2 or 3 scenes.
I didn't notice that till the second time I watched this. I was like, Vision gets like no cool things to do. Like no Vision cool things. He stabs one of the Black Order guys with his own weapon, but he doesn't
falls down.
But he doesn't get to do any cool Vision stuff in this movie. You know?
Even it's been a while since I've seen Age of Ultron, and I was
but Vision was like the Jesus of that movie. You know?
And I was sitting here being like, wait. I know he's got a whole lot of power.
Could he use the Mind Stone to like blast people?
Couldn't he improve this situation?
Well, so when Vision dies, I thought that was very effective, and it's a great moment of like just leaning on some hope, and it's another great gotcha moment because you're like, okay, woo.
Can't complete that glove.
He can't complete that glove. It's still powerful glove. One stone alone, he gets him. Then when he uses the Time Stone, that is a great. Oh shit! That's right. That's right. It's what the Time Stone is.
And it also just makes you hate Thanos that much more. Like, it's a great moment for him as a villain because it's like it's so heart wrenching. He's just spitting all over that moment that just happened. You know.
What I love about it too is it's so emotionally effective towards Scarlet Witch.
Yeah.
Like she can't even have that for Vision. Like she knows Vision has to die, and at least she could do it in a sense of sacrifice for the greater good. And she can't even have that. Instead, she has.
And now you get to watch him die for nothing.
Now she already has the feelings of killing the one she loves.
Now she gets to watch someone else.
Now she has like both of these like piled on her. Like that's an effective ass moment right there.
That's fucked up.
That's a great moment. The big thing. All right. Save the big thing for the ending. Thor shows up. Another great gotcha moment. Stabs Thanos in the heart. You do for a second think oh, we won.
Yeah.
I did not see that coming.
one god versus a titan. I can see how this could work out for us.
Aim for the head. And I love that he actually does snap his fingers.
Clunk.
Giant ass metal golden glove like that. And then does wipe out half the universe. As a guy who actually read the Infinity Gauntlet comic book, one of the rare times I can actually say this in terms of a relationship with a movie and reading some source material, I thought like, oh, clever, because that happens in like the first 30 pages of the Infinity Gauntlet comic book, you know? I'm like, oh yeah, he does that way early when he has the gauntlet. So I like that they included that. The other part of me was thinking, especially on a second viewing, when everyone in the theater's like, oh my god, what? Why? No! Huh? Impossible! When Bucky first vanishes, I'm like, oh shit! Yeah, that's an oh shit moment. But then when everyone starts vanishing,
Black Panther like number 2, and you're like, oh.
Then you're like, oh, this is just a plot point in part 1, and then a lot of people are reacting to this stuff like, did they really just kill off Spider-Man?
I can't believe they did that. And I'm like, I don't think they did.
I'm like,
guys.
I'm not one shred of me thinks at all that they're gone. You know?
They killed so many.
It's a cliffhanger. That's all it is. Yeah. It's an effective cliffhanger.
And what I'll give that whole sequence is credit to the Russos and everybody involved.
It's an effective moment.
It looks and feels amazing. It's everything that it ought to be, and it's just the problem is the way the movie machine works now. We just know that, like you said, Kevin Feige's been talking about Spider-Man 2 this week. It was robbed from me of dramatic weight, even though it is a beautiful moment.
It's a beautiful moment, but to me, it's a cliffhanger in a giant TV show episode. I'm not once in the audience like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, cool plot point. Now, I guess the second one will kind of focus on how we're going to get these guys back, right? That's for another video of like my theories and predictions of how I think the next one will play out. What surprised me about this movie was there was a limited amount. Like, there's a lot of cool things that happen. There's a lot of really cool surprise moments throughout this thing. But in terms of like...
surprises to me were all moments.
And did I see that cliffhanger coming? No. But is it necessarily a shock thing? Like, I can't believe they did this. No, because it's very apparent that
this is
going to come back.
Somehow.
Yeah, definitely.
Ant-Man's going to go subatomic and crawl inside the glove, bite Thanos' finger, and he's going to go, oh my God. And then, that's how we're going to get all of our Avengers back.
Yeah, and I will add that even though I'm not in the audience with everyone vanishing, oh my God, I think it's a great cliffhanger, and the way how there was so much death in this film, they lose in this movie, does really feel true to their word of what Marvel's been saying, how this is a conclusion and a game changer, because it does put me in the position of, wow, it's the first time I'm really theorizing about what's the next Marvel movie going to be like, what's going to happen, how are they going to do this, how can they beat Thanos. It's the first time where Marvel film is really getting me that feeling, and I'm like, and it provides a different mood too. It doesn't have this like triumphant ending.
Characters run out of things to say. Like that moment is exemplary to me when I think it's like Banner says something and Cap just sits there for a second and goes, oh God.
As much as I'm not in the seat believing that they're all dead, I am there feeling the emotional effectiveness of what the characters are going through.
It's not the movie's fault.
It's not the movie's fault.
Yeah.
No, it's not the movie's fault.
That is not the movie's fault.
No, but I'm feeling what the characters are going through, and hence which it affects the way as an audience member I'm viewing this movie. So in that way, I still really respect the ending and like the ending.
And you get some more film-rich scenes because of that.
Yeah. The first time I watched this movie, the way it kind of cuts to black bothered me the first time I watched it, because I was like, this is an Avengers movie, and it just ends there. No, like, 10 minutes to see them like what my still kind of an issue is, what is the arc of the Avengers here? But on the second viewing, I get it, it really is just Thanos is the main character.
Yes, Thanos Infinity War.
Because the movie starts off with Thanos, he has a mission. What does he want to do? He says it in the movie, collect all the stones, cleanse half the universe, and then watch the sun set in like with a smile on his face.
Sunrise with a smile on his face.
Yeah, and then he does that, and then it ends because this is Thanos' journey. Yeah,
and the MCU's over.
And the post-credit scene too. My girlfriend brought this up, and I can't, and I'm like, she's so right. And maybe you guys will be in the comments, will be like, how does Nick Fury know Captain Marvel's around, like alive? He might know where she is, but how does he know she's not one of the people disappearing right now, you know?
Hoping for, I don't know, optimism.
It's just gotta alert. It's the top thing on my bag right here. Yeah.
Who knows?
It's like literally the top thing on his open bag was to contact Captain Marvel at a moment's notice.
Well, and the other thing too, and again, I don't know, maybe it's just, the way the business works now and the way movie news works now, we all know so much stuff, but even that moment didn't hit me as much because it's like, I know they're shooting Captain Marvel already. Like, we've already talked a whole lot.
Well, Captain Marvel's going to be in the 90s.
But even still, I mean, I feel like this moment serves to hype up that Captain Marvel, like, I assumed that if they're making Captain Marvel, she'll be involved in Infinity War 2.
Yeah, to me that whole like vanishing thing is a great cliffhanger to tune in next season.
Yeah, totally.
When we see how most of them come back.
How are we going to undo this, and who is going to get undone and who's going to stay dead?
And there are already set photos that revealed time travel for part 4. I think the first act and the third act, which are each are really great. It's the second act where the only issues I really have with the film can actually come into play. And that's the only thing that kind of prevents me from giving this like a 10 out of 10. That first act and third act are not like a 110-minute film. That is a huge chunk of the movie, more than half, and that stuff is all very rewarding. I still think that there's plenty of greatness to be had.
There's tons to appreciate.
I'm going to steal something from someone from Rotten Tomatoes. I don't remember who said it, but someone said this movie met my expectations but didn't exceed them. And that's exactly, when we read that, I was like, that's exactly how I feel. That's exactly how I feel, and there's no other way to put it. I can't remember who said that, but I'm stealing it from you.
I mean, that's kind of the way I feel, especially after the second one. I'm like, everybody has a great moment. All the worlds and realms are dazzling.
A lot of great fan service.
The effects, for the most part, are really great. There are a lot of great fan moments. There are a lot of, gripping stakes and stuff. But yeah, like the moments that truly surprised me were smaller and fewer and further between.
Yeah.
There were a lot of things that I expected or at least understood would be the case, given, again, what this movie has to accomplish and what it needs to use to do so.
Anyway, guys, what are some spoiler moments that we forgot to cover for you out of this 2 hour and 40-minute movie? You can subscribe to the Reject Nation, click that notification bell, make sure to check out our opening sketch on our non-spoiler review, and check us on Patreon, full-length TV show reactions, weekly Q&As. We'd love to have you join us.